So what do you think makes something a tale of our time?
I think what makes something a tale of our time is that it is culturally significant and can stand the test of time. So if in 50, 100 years from now, we picked up that story, it would make as much of an impact on us as it did then.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tales of Our Times. This is a show where we discuss the stories that move us, what makes them so meaningful, and why others could or should find meaning in them as well. This is not a spoiler-free show, so bear that in mind as you continue to listen. We tackle books, movies, podcasts, and more. Where there's a story, there's a reason to read or watch. With today's story, you kind of have a choice. I'm your host, Amanda Stevens, and joining me today in the studio is one of our new hosts, Tristan Hildebrand.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so welcome to RTI and welcome to the studio.
Thank you so much.
Is there anything you would like to say to introduce yourself?
Ooh, aside from working at RTI now, a very new job, I also run a YouTube channel and several social media platforms, and that was my full-time job for a while.
Yeah. What kind of videos do you do?
Lifestyle and singing in Taiwanese.
Well, what's the story that you brought for us today?
Ooh, this story is one that has followed me since elementary school. It's called Battle Royale.
Yeah. Now, I think a lot of people that I know at least are maybe familiar with the idea of a battle royale and perhaps not familiar with the movie or even that there is a movie. So
yes, in WWE and other professional wrestling sort of fighting styles, I think Battle Royale I think that's where the term came from.
Right. I always assumed that was where the term came from. It might be older than that, but I'm not going to research it for this show. So for the sake of it, I always assumed that it is come from this movie, but you told me there's actually also a book as well.
The movie is based on the book, and the book was written by a Japanese author,
Koshun Takami, and that was published in 1996, I think. And then the movie that a lot of people are familiar with is from 2000. And that one was directed by Kinji Fukasaku, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, we'll have to get into what your first experience was with this movie because you told me, you just told everybody you saw this in elementary school.
Yes.
Which is wild. Wildly inappropriate.
Wildly inappropriate. And on YouTube.
You watched it
back
also
in
on
the
YouTube?
day, it was around 2005.
My goodness.
You could just pull up movies on YouTube.
I remember that, but our subs were not technologically savvy enough to do that. We always got the DVD player. Frankly, probably not. We probably got the VCR player that was still in the back of the school somewhere, rolled in with an old TV that you can kind of barely see, and then cars.
So you saw Battle Royale?
No.
Oh,
no,
never. But you've heard of it?
I've heard of it. I've never seen it. So actually, I'm really excited for the summary then because I really want to know what happens. And there's one aspect of this that I have heard a lot about, which is kind of a weird part.
Ooh, what is it?
After. So for everybody who's out there like me and has not seen Battle Royale yet, Tristan, do you think you could give us a summary of what happens?
Yes, I will say it is not the most PG. Well, not the most PG. I would say it might be PG-13.
So should we give a content warning?
Yeah, I would say any triggers relating to suicide would be a big one.
Yeah, maybe
right?
Skip this one.
Yeah,
and then if you were to think about watching it, it's very gruesome.
Yeah, absolutely.
So those are two things you should watch out for that we will probably get into discussing.
Okay. So imagine you're part of a Japanese class of students, right? About 40 students, give or take, and you're on your way to a school trip, right? Field trip. And all of a sudden you wake up and you find everybody on the bus has just passed out. Nobody's responsive. You yourself had passed out. And you try opening a window thinking maybe we've been, poisoned. Maybe there's a gas leak or something. And somebody comes and knocks you out. And when you wake up, you find yourself on an island. And they tell you that your class of students have to kill each other off. And after a certain number of days, it's about 3 days, 5 days, only one of you can remain.
It's a very, now kind of a genre standby I feel like it wasn't very common at the time that it came out.
Right. I feel like more recent years, especially mid 2000s, more people were familiar with the Hunger Games.
Hunger Games Danganronpa is a game that's like a similar kind of thing. So anyway,
we can compare and contrast the two after
absolutely.
we get through this one.
So this class of students now is in a battle royale. They have to kill each other to survive.
Yes. I think what's at the forefront of everybody's mind when they hear, or if they were to imagine themselves put in this situation, is how can I get it out? How can I get out of it scot-free, right? So you think, okay, well, I don't have to kill anybody. I can just hide, but you're on an island, and they have collars around everybody's necks. And if, let's say, 42 students remain at the end of the time period, then all of the necklaces, all the collars would explode, and you'd all die anyway.
Oh, cool. So the only way to survive is to kill everybody else.
Yes.
Okay.
Then you think, well, I can take the collar off. You take it off, it'll
gonna explode.
You think, I can kill the people running the
game.
program, the game.
Yeah.
But they all have guns, they all have weapons, and they can use a remote to set your collar off.
Really not in their favor at all.
Absolutely not. If you try to escape the island, again, it's location sensitive, so it'll blow up. So all of your options to escape are eliminated. So you have to make a choice.
Yeah.
So right as they're thrown into this situation, you see some of the characters starting to take their different paths. Yeah. So a couple, a guy and a girl from the class, they decided to just take their own lives, jump off of a cliff, figured it'd be easier. Some people, they tried to band together, tried to say, hey, we can figure out a way out of this. We still have time. Others just started killing.
They just go for it.
Yeah. Free for all. And what other options would you have? Hide and wait it out.
I guess you could, but I don't know that I would trust that. Like, I feel like in a situation like this, like you're going to be like the Hunger Games, I guess you're going to be, something's going to happen where they're going to make you face each other. I don't think that the people who run the game are going to let you get away.
Yeah, but for the first few days, you could hide. So people do in the book,
that.
In the movie, people do decide to, wait it out, see how things go.
Then is there like a main character that it follows?
Yes.
Or how does it like finish up?
The story follows the main character, Shuya Nanahara, as he navigates his options for escaping this morbid game. So at first, again, he's the main character. He's the protagonist, so they're not going to make him too bad of a guy, right?
Okay.
He's likable. He starts off, I think they all get different weapons in their bags, in the movie at least.
Good.
And some of them are great machine guns, automatic, semi-automatic, and some of them are like pot lids or like a pair of binoculars.
Wow, that sucks.
So just as he's leaving the facility after he's been given his rations for the couple days and his weapon, he hangs around to see if one of his friends or classmates are gonna come out, and he can talk it over with them or figure out a way out of it. But he's quickly, I guess, thrusted into violence.
They're not like the talking type.
Yeah.
Okay.
And and it is definitely, there are a lot of details, but overall, some of the friends turn out to not be very good friends. Some of the friends are really close. They get really close to hacking the system and getting everybody's collars off. But just as they're figuring it out and they've hacked into the system, I think another student who's very kill happy, what is the word? Murderous.
Murder happy.
Comes in and takes them all out. So that was their only chance.
And so then does the main character survive? Shunya?
Yes. So big spoiler.
Yeah.
One of the characters who showed up with them when they first got to the island, actually they had 2 guest appearances by characters who were not in their class. And one of them was the winner of a previous Battle Royale.
Wow.
Yeah, the winner. So imagine getting through all that and being the last one alive and then going into it all over again.
That's a bunch of BS.
Yeah, I think at that point, that cliff was sounding pretty jumpable.
Yeah.
But he seemed to have come up with a plan to escape the island, and I think he was a little bit apprehensive about helping the main character and the main character's I guess the female lead It wasn't a love interest completely, but it was the female lead. And they run into each other because they're injured. He helps them out. And then they end up, big spoiler though, they end up escaping the island.
Ooh.
But the all-star from the previous season of Battle Royale ends up, I think, dying on the boat pretty much. So it's just the two of them left. But funny, because it's a government program, funny that the government then says that they're, like illegal. They're
Oh, they escape, but then like they're not allowed to return. Like they can never go back to their normal life.
To society. No.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess if one of them would have remained, then they would have been a hero, which is highlighted at the beginning through a news report where they highlight that season's winner and says, "Wow, what an amazing girl!" They all celebrate her, but because two people were left, they can't manipulate the system, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is very Hunger Games-ish in that way, where like this is a government-sponsored thing that like everybody does. Wow. Okay. That's the more you know. I didn't know that about it. I really thought it was. I didn't know how it was set up, but I guess I thought it was more of like a fringe thing rather than like an actual like government.
It was
system.
a government, but definitely different government setup from in Hunger Games. I think the government, it wasn't really clear what their intentions were behind it, but it was a military program to see, I guess, what students would do.
In like this kind of severe situation.
Yes.
So wild. Well, there we are. I don't know.
There we are.
I don't have anything else to say about that.
This is actually, when you do icebreakers with people and they're the questions that people always ask, like if you had a superpower, what would it be? Or what's your favorite animal? What I think is more psychologically indicative of a person is what they would do in a situation like this.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I know what I want to say, but it's not. I don't know that it's because I'm just getting out of there. By which I mean, like, I'm gonna take care of it. I will try to take the collar off, knowing what the consequence is, and that will be good for me, I think.
Suicide?
Yeah.
Ooh.
That's it. I don't need to. I don't need to live through that. I don't need to live with the scars of that. I think
what always made that interesting to me as well was that when I'm in a class of students, starting from when I was in elementary school, I always think, who in this classroom, who among my friends would turn on me and decide to kill me?
Yeah. I'd say the one thing that I have heard talked about this movie was in some like feminist critiques of media. A lot of people have talked about how, I think it's in the original Battle Royale rather than any spinoffs, one of the characters who is very good at killing other people is a girl who's on her period for the first time. And like what that says about choosing that as a character who is very good at surviving and also killing all of her classmates. But I don't remember the critique I don't remember the critique very clearly. I just remember that stood out to me.
I will say, having read the book and watched the movies multiple times, I don't remember that being her first period, but I do remember that one of the girls found out that another girl had been there from the feminine products, like in the toilet. Or
maybe it wasn't her first period. Maybe it's just like on her period.
But some of the girls in there are
savage.
Impressive.
Oh, there you are.
Some of them are very kind of, weak and
very
helpless.
Stereotypical. So then tell us, what was your first experience with this story? You said you saw it in elementary school.
Yes. I don't know how I came upon it, but I came upon it on YouTube. And the idea of it was too good to look away. It was very inappropriate for me at the time, at that age, developmental stage in my life. Yeah. But it was too good to look away.
Was it like a train wreck thing, or was it like you were actually fascinated by what you saw?
Both, yeah.
Oh, wait, which grade were you? Can I ask?
I think I was in 5th grade.
Okay. It's like towards the end of elementary school. Yeah. That is when kids kind of get curious for the gruesome, I feel like.
Definitely. And maybe, I don't know, maybe there were a couple of my friends who turned on me, and it was kind of, what's the word?
Like a revenge fantasy?
Lethargic? Lethargic?
Yeah. Okay. Cathartic.
Yeah.
Like it made you feel better because you got to see like what you could have done, right?
No. It's cathartic to see that not only my classmates, not only my friends would turn on me, but others would too.
Oh, you're like, things could be so much worse.
Yeah,
At least they just called me like mean names. They didn't actually like take a potlet and kill me with it.
Right. Potlet. And when you're sitting in school all day, you're bored. It's so fun to keep your mind entertained with thinking about how would I get out of this. And I think that's part of the attraction of a lot of zombie apocalypse stories, films, books. Yeah.
It's like the projection of yourself into the situation.
Right.
So then let's move on to, what do you find so meaningful about this story in particular? Was that part of it, that like you found it just a very good like mental exercise?
Yes, it's very psychological.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard that there's no good answer. And what I respect about it too, if you compare it to newer stories like The Hunger Games, is that it wasn't set up to be a love story. There were no multiple love interests. It wasn't idealized.
Yeah.
You know, after Hunger Games, just like after I read Twilight, I said, I wish I was a vampire and I wish I had a vampire boyfriend, right? But, you know, after Hunger Games, people would think like, ooh, I kind of want to be in that. I want to have this kind of like fun. But Battle Royale,
right?
It doesn't idealize or what's the word for that?
Romanticize the situation.
Romanticize, yeah.
I agree with that. I find it very refreshing to like watch a story. Like the one that stuck out to me when I was growing up was Pacific Rim, where it was like a big adventure story or like a dangerous like climactic story, anything like that. But there is no romance. Like relationships themselves are very important, but that not just because it's not a romantic relationship doesn't mean that it is any like less important or less meaningful, right? So I always love to see that in a story, like in any kind of situation, but especially in like a high stakes situation like this. I love it when the writers are like, you know, they don't have to be in love to save each other's lives from this terrible situation. Like
there might have been like a crush in there. And they were kind of interested in each other, but it never played out to be romantic.
Yeah. They
And
had
I
like bigger
appreciate
fish
that.
to fry, you can say.
So I respect that because I don't think it should be romanticized at all.
Yeah, agreed. It's a really terrible situation. And not just in a like, well, on the surface level, right? But like to then try and put romance into that kind of, I think, makes the other themes that you might pull out of that story feel a little bit hollow, right? Especially it's a horror movie. So they're not necessarily known for having to romanticize something. Or like a horror thriller, I guess.
Yes.
So, well, then on to our almost last question. What meaning do you think other people could find in this story? Or to say that another way, like what do you think makes Battle Royale a tale of our time?
I think others reading the book, watching the movie, can really ask themselves, what would I do in this situation? There is no best answer. So it really does show what kind of a person you are. And you can use it to reflect on relationships in your daily life and think about who would be there for you if you were in such an awful situation. I think people can, have that takeaway of it's like a mental exercise.
Right. Or like help you plan your team, like your apocalyptic team. I'd also say I think it really, I feel like, did a lot for the genre as well. Because as you were describing it, it was only after you were telling me the situation in Battle Royale that I was like, we started listing off other things that have this similar premise, right? So like Danganronpa is a Japanese game that is like similar. It's like you're in a group of classmates and someone's just going to keep killing you guys. So you got to figure it out, maybe. And the last one will win. There's the Hunger Games that took that in like a more Western focused view. And I'm sure that there have been like many others that copied like a similar format.
Of course.
So I think it's probably a very good like metric of that, or not metric, but perhaps forefather of the genre.
And I think we'll continue to see that as that story, that basis is reiterated in other forms. Yeah,
definitely. So we're almost out of time. But the last question that I would ask you is, if you could give Battle Royale a subtitle of your very own, what would that be?
A subtitle, like a line of text.
Yeah. Any like one phrase line.
Like, kill everyone else or die.
Maybe like the beginning of Kill or Die. Survival movies?
Which one of your friends would kill you?
One of your friends really know? Kill you? Who do you trust?
Yeah.
Like that one. Who should you trust? Who do you trust? Yeah. Battle Royale. Who
should you trust?
Should you trust? Wow. That's so sad, but very accurate, I think. Hey, Tristan, thank you so much for coming on our show today. I really appreciate it. It's been fun to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you to everyone else out there for joining us here on Radio Taiwan International. I've been your host, Amanda Stevens, with my guest and
Tristan Hildebrand,
our new host. And I hope that you enjoyed learning more about Battle Royale. Who should you trust? A tale of our time. We'll see you next time.